We start with the coronavirus situation in Japan. Health authorities say the number of seriously ill patients across the country has hit a record high of 1,176. The figure, which includes people on ventilators, has more than tripled over the past month or so. An emergency declaration covering Tokyo, Osaka, Hyogo, and Kyoto prefectures was supposed to end Tuesday, but it'll now remain in place through the end of the month. The measure is being expanded to Aichi and Fukuoka prefectures starting Wednesday. Aichi logged a record 578 cases on Tuesday.
Please exercise self-restraint and take precautionary measures to prevent further infections.
In Fukuoka, the Olympic torch relay has been canceled. Instead, participants held a torch lighting ceremony without spectators.
I want to encourage people with the Olympic flame at a time when many are suffering in the pandemic.
Preparations are continuing in the capital, where test events for Paralympics track and field sports were held on Tuesday. They took place in the main venue, the National Stadium. More than 100 para-athletes participated. They followed strict physical distancing and other precautions. Some competed with masks on.
Athletes and staff were very careful about taking preventative measures. I hope today's trial helps make the Tokyo Games safe and secure.
Malaysia has declared another nationwide lockdown to deal with more contagious coronavirus variants. Travel between states and among districts will be banned. Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin announced that the lockdown will be in place from Wednesday through June 7th. He said that stringent measures were needed to curb the spread of the virus in the community. Muhyiddin said the economic sector will continue to operate, but all social activities will be forbidden, including restaurant dining. This is Malaysia's third nationwide lockdown since the pandemic began. The measure comes just ahead of a holiday marking the end of Ramadan. Millions of people usually travel to their hometowns at this time. Malaysia has been under a state of emergency since January. On Tuesday, the country reported over 3,900 new cases, more than 3 times the number in March. Meanwhile, some countries in Southeast Asia have detected the more infectious variant first identified in India. Health authorities in Thailand said on Monday that the variant was found in a Thai woman and her 4-year-old son in quarantine after arriving from Pakistan. Thailand is facing a new wave of infections that originated in Bangkok's entertainment venues in late March. The Philippines said on Tuesday that 2 Filipinos who returned from the Middle East last month were found to be infected with the variant. Both Thailand and the Philippines have temporarily halted travel from South Asian countries to prevent the spread of the variant. In Myanmar, the military oppression of the media continues. Journalists working for a media company in Myanmar have been arrested in neighboring Thailand on allegations of having crossed the border without permission. Police in Thailand announced that they arrested 5 people on Sunday in Chiang Mai in the country's north, including 3 journalists from Myanmar, on suspicion of entering the country illegally. The police added that they'd been staying at a residence there for a month. 3 of the journalists belong to DVB, Democratic Voice of Burma, which had its license revoked at the beginning of March, along with 4 other media companies in Myanmar. DVB's chief editor has issued a statement saying the arrested journalists had been covering demonstrations against the military until the day their license was revoked. The statement strongly urges the Thai authorities not to deport them back to Myanmar, where their lives could be in serious danger. It also calls for the support of the international community, appealing to the UNHCR for protection. The country's military has been pressuring the domestic media, detaining dozens of journalists and removing satellite dishes to disrupt broadcasts. It's been revealed that former Nissan Motor chairman Carlos Ghosn told Japanese prosecutors during questioning on charges of financial wrongdoing that his future compensation at the automaker was not guaranteed. He made the statement before fleeing to Lebanon in late 2019. Ghosn has been indicted in Japan for allegedly understating his compensation by more than $80 million in securities reports. Former Nissan executive Greg Kelly is on trial at the Tokyo District Court in connection with the alleged financial wrongdoing. Ghosn's statement was read out in the court on Tuesday. In it, he says the amount of what prosecutors describe as his unpaid executive compensation was just a reference. He also says he ensured his executive pay remained at about $9 million to avoid public criticism and low morale among Nissan's employees. Kelly's questioning begins on Wednesday. Japan's ruling and opposition parties remain at odds over how to revise the country's immigration law amid growing criticism. The government drafted a revision in response to a growing number of foreigners in long-term detention at immigration facilities. A draft revision currently under deliberation in the Diet would allow immigration officials to deport foreigners even while their papers are being processed. That would include people who have filed for refugee status more than 3 times or have been sentenced to more than 3 years in prison in Japan. On Tuesday, the ruling bloc proposed voting on the draft at a lower house committee meeting on Wednesday, aiming to have it passed during the current Diet session. But the opposition maintains that deliberations on the draft are insufficient and there will be no vote until details surrounding the death of a Sri Lankan woman in detention come to light. The woman in her 30s had overstayed her visa. She died in March at an immigration detention facility in Nagoya, central Japan. A group of more than 100 scholars specializing in the Constitution and international law issued a statement expressing concern. They said the draft revision worsens Japan's immigration system, which is hugely problematic from the perspective of human rights treaties. They called for a drastic review of the draft with an eye toward possibly scrapping it.
I think it will be a truly grave situation unless the revision is made to establish a system that mainly focuses on the protection of refugees.
The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and others have also expressed concerns about the draft's provisions. Now to Russia, where a school shooting has left about 24 people dead or wounded. The attack happened on Tuesday morning in the city of Kazan, about 800 kilometers east of Moscow. Investigators say a gunman opened fire inside the school and detonated an explosive device. The local governor says 7 students died. All were in the 8th grade. 16 people are injured. He says a teenage suspect has been taken into custody and no accomplices have been identified. Such attacks are relatively rare in the country. Reuters news agency says the last major school shooting left 20 dead in Russian-annexed Crimea 3 years ago. In the Middle East, clashes in Jerusalem between Israeli security forces and Palestinians have escalated into rocket attacks and airstrikes over a wider area. The violence began when Israeli police confronted Palestinians visiting a holy site in Jerusalem's Old City in mid-April at the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The Palestinian side says 700 Palestinians were injured on Monday alone. Meanwhile, the Islamic fundamentalist group Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, reportedly fired more than 300 rockets into Israel through early Tuesday. Local media say homes were damaged and 31 people injured in the suburbs of Jerusalem and in southern Israel. The Israeli military launched retaliatory airstrikes, which health authorities in Gaza say killed 23 people and injured more than 100 others. Hamas is expected to counterattack. The UN Security Council convened an emergency meeting on Monday and discussed whether to issue a statement urging both sides to exercise restraint. But Israeli media and others report the council could not settle on a message due to reluctance on the part of the United States. It's time now for a check on world weather. Southern Japan's Kyushu entered the wet season Tuesday, making it the second earliest on record. For more on that, we turn to our meteorologist, Sayaka Mori.
Hello there. A danger season has already arrived in parts of southern Japan. Southern Kyushu has entered the rainy season that was 19 days earlier than normal, and we will continue to see heavy rainfall for the next several days. This is the second earliest since records began 65 years ago. Now, this is the rainy season front. It will continue to batter the similar area for the next couple of days, so we will see drenching rainfall continuing for the next couple of days. And not just rainfall, there is a possibility of thunderstorms. Hail, gusts, and even tornadoes are possible, especially on your Wednesday. Kagoshima could see drenching rainfall on Wednesday, and then gloomy conditions will continue into next week. Naha should be in the rainy season, but you'll see a spell of sunny weather persisting into Tuesday at least. Wild weather still affects much of the southern United States. On Monday, there was a report of hail with a diameter of 10 centimeters in several places in the state. And we will continue to see wet weather from Texas into the deep south on your Tuesday. And we will continue to see a risk for flooding as well. Meanwhile, we will see quite low temperatures. Even snow is accumulating in and around the Colorado area. Colorado and Wyoming could see more than 35 centimeters of snow into Tuesday noon. But temperatures will be warming up to the double digits finally as we go into Wednesday in Denver, but cooling down to 23 in Houston and still on a chilly side in Oklahoma City on your Wednesday. Meanwhile, heavy rainfall has hit France. We saw nearly 270 millimeters of rainfall in just 24 hours in southern France. That's the record for the month of rain, and rain will likely head towards the east and will affect Italy and parts of Germany on your Tuesday and Wednesday. That's it from me. Stay safe.
Israel launches new airstrikes to answer more than 100 rockets launched from Gaza by Hamas militants. The deadly exchange of fire comes after weeks of heightened tensions in Jerusalem. Ivory Coast faces electricity outages that hurt local businesses and cut supplies to neighboring countries. A U.S. Coast Guard ship in the Persian Gulf fired warning shots at Iranian fast boats the U.S. Defense Department described as operating in an unsafe and unprofessional way. And NASA spacecraft OSIRIS-REx on Monday began a 2-year trip back to Earth with rocks from an asteroid.
The Palestinian group Hamas says it has fired more than 130 rockets towards the Israeli city of Tel Aviv and its suburbs. A woman is reported to have been killed in the barrage. Dozens of people are reported to have died in Israeli air raids on Gaza. One attack led to this high-rise building collapsing. People inside had earlier been told to evacuate. 7 schoolchildren and 2 adults have been killed in a shooting at a school in the Russian city of Kazan. Security forces stormed the school and detained the suspected attacker, a 19-year-old who was a former pupil. Manchester City have won the Premier League title after their only remaining challengers, Manchester United, lost to Leicester. It's City's 3rd title in just 4 seasons.